Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sonova and you are watching A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's pushing ahead with a plan to seize Gaza City. European Union foreign ministers meet on Monday to discuss the upcoming Trump-Putin talks in Alaska. Earthquake in Turkey's northeast Balıkesir province flattens buildings, killing one. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's pushing ahead with a plan to seize Gaza City in what he says is the fastest route to defeat Hamas, free hostages and end the war. But global leaders and UN officials warn the strategy may spark a humanitarian catastrophe.
This is the best way to end the war swiftly. That's according to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is defending his plan to seize control of Gaza City. He says the aim is to dismantle remaining Hamas strongholds, and he says free Gaza, while providing designated safe zones for civilians.
The war can end tomorrow if Gaza, or rather if Hamas lays down its arms and releases all the remaining hostages. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will have overriding security responsibility. A security zone will be established on Gaza's border with Israel to prevent future terrorist incursions. A civilian administration will be established in Gaza that will seek to live in peace with Israel. Israel's Security Cabinet instructed the IDF to dismantle the two remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps. Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily.
However, his plan has ignited fierce international condemnation from global powers and United Nations. Representatives from the UK, France, Denmark, Greece, and Slovenia say the plan risks violating international humanitarian law, could endanger the hostages, and would worsen the humanitarian disaster in the Strip.
In Gaza, children and babies are suffering from starvation. Hundreds of civilians have been killed trying to access basic food supplies. This inhumanity cannot be justified. The partial aid access Israel granted in late July has proven woefully inadequate. We have a clear message for Israel. Urgently and permanently lift all restrictions on aid delivery.
I'm extremely concerned over the prolonged conflict, the reports of atrocities and further human toll that is likely to unfold following the government of Israel's decision to expand military operations in Gaza. This marks a grave escalation in the conflict that has already inflicted unimaginable suffering. Now, for over 670 days, Palestinians in Gaza have endured daily killings and injuries. More than 61,000 people have been killed.
Meanwhile, protests are growing across Israel. Thousands have been taking to the streets, warning that the expansion of military operations could put the lives of the remaining hostages at even greater risk.
5 Al Jazeera journalists, including prominent reporter Anewz al-Sharif, have been killed in an Israeli airstrike outside Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza on Sunday. Local officials said 7 people were killed in total. The TV network said al-Sharif, Mohammed Grega, Ibrahim Zahir, Mohammed Nofal and Moamen Aliva were in a tent for journalists at the time. Israel's military has admitted it deliberately targeted al-Sharif, alleging he led a Hamas cell and coordinated rocket attacks, claims the 28-year-old had previously denied. Al Jazeera also rejected the allegations, calling the Israeli strike an attempt to silence reporting from Gaza. Press freedom groups and the UN expert had earlier warned that al-Sharif's life was at risk due to his coverage of the conflict. The Committee to Protect Journalists called the attack appalling and said that at least 186 journalists have been killed in Gaza since October 2023. Meanwhile, the Italian Ministry of Defense carried out its first aid-drop humanitarian mission for Gaza. The operation, which will continue during the next few days, aims to ensure that all aid provided by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other donors is delivered to its intended recipients. Joining us now from Lisbon, Portugal is Lieutenant General Marco Serrania, a respected military strategist with deep expertise in conflict operations and security policy. Mr. Serrania, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Marco, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu believes that taking Gaza City quickly will bring the war to an end. From a military perspective, does this strategy hold up?
Well, let's see. It will be a difficult operation for sure. Some military experts at the beginning of the war, after the 7th of October, 2 years ago, said that the military concept of an operation to run something that was needed in Gaza at that time should be a very more robust operation under land force point of view. So we have two keywords for that. It's clear, secure, and bold. It's something that the United States have experienced in Iraq with General Mattis and others. So what does this mean? This means that at that time the Israelis should clear the zones, secure the zones, hold the zones, and after bring back the population without Hamas, of course. This is something that Israel has not done at the time because for two main reasons. The first one was that a robust military operation with ground forces will be very demanding for Israel, for the IDF, lots of casualties for sure, and even lots of casualties also for the civilian population. So it will be a robust operation, and with all those constraints and contingencies. So, has not been done at the time. Now, Israel, the Prime Minister, said that it has to be done at least in the two biggest strongholds, Gaza City and Al-Mawazi camp. That was from the beginning of the war, a humanitarian camp. We remember that from the beginning of the war in the south, in the middle of Gaza. So it's not going to be a quick operation. We see the how can I say the contingencies that the IDF put in this operation from the very beginning through the chief of staff. We know that it will be a demanding operation. Nevertheless, I suppose that at this point in time, the Prime Minister and the government of Israel is using this as a kind of ultimatum for Hamas to give up the weapons and to abandon Gaza. And at least from my point of view, let's see if this works. Because as you know, Hamas has been under huge pressure from Qatar, from Egypt, and from Jordan to quit the war, even from the Palestinian Authority to end the war, and after figure out a solution for Gaza in a political way. So, but unfortunately, Hamas, that was in the last 15 days more or less very pressured to do that, and everybody was hoping that Hamas could do that. Change the narrative to wait and fight until a second state, a Palestinian state, is built. Something that we know that for the time being is almost impossible.
Marco,
so I suppose that more than. Even I don't know if Netanyahu wants to. The radical minister in the government want to continue the war for sure. Netanyahu, I'm not quite sure about that. Let's see if this work with like a pressure to Hamas. If not, for sure, the first phase of the operation, Gaza City, because the IDF already planned that, should be run in the next days. The IDF, we have seen some message. The IDF was planning to start that after the 7th of October, the next 7th of October, but the Prime Minister pushed them ahead, so to run it as quick as possible. So, but nevertheless, should be a very demanding operation for the Israel Defense Forces for sure.
Marco, on humanitarian concerns, Netanyahu denies using starvation as a weapon and blames Hamas for stealing aid. How credible is this narrative?
Let's see. we have a humanitarian problem in Gaza, for sure. Starvation as a tool to run the war, I'm not quite sure about that. We have from the Israeli side, even from the US side and others, some evidences that some of the trails and the pictures and so on that we have seen in the last couple of weeks, some of them have been done by other ways, not in the real world. So, and that is, it's the war working. So, of course, Hamas and others are pushing very much with this line of action, the starvation as a way to put pressure in Israel in the international arena to stop the war. We have seen that in New York in the piece that you have just shown. But nevertheless, the sanitarian and the humanitarian and the delivery of food, of course, is not working well from the very beginning of the war. We know that. So, but starvation as a way of conducting the war, I don't believe in that. Nevertheless, Netanyahu, with the pressure, international pressure, is going to open more capacity to deliver aid from the Israeli side, and even for other countries. We have seen Italy, not just delivering from the air, but even by ground, increasing the number of trucks that are going to enter in Gaza. Because if Israel starts the operation without a more robust humanitarian head, now I suppose that time the problem is going to be complicated for Israel, because it will be multiplied, the problems that are in the ground, because we are going to have more troops, especially in Gaza, more military operations, less possibility to deliver aid, of course. And of course, Israel in the planning plans that the population should get out of Gaza City to run the operations. I don't know if it's going to happen completely, because we know that Hamas sometimes capture the population to stay with them in the strongholds to expose them to the war effects. But nevertheless, I suppose starvation is something that we are going to know more after the end of the war, for sure.
Marco, how might the targeted killing of Al Jazeera's Anewz al-Sharif and 4 of his colleagues affect global perceptions of press freedom and journalist safety in conflict zones?
Let's see. Press freedom in Gaza is difficult. Yes, not only now, but even in other times. This is a kind of war that is very different from others. Some things that happened in this war that didn't happen in any other war. And in the top of that is the impossibility of people flee from the war zones that we see everywhere. Civilians fleeing from the combat zones. Gaza it was blockaded, as we know, by Israel by one side, but also by Egypt in the other side. It's true, and so people was not able to flee. From the several years, we know that Hamas some kind of controlled and captured some of what we call the international agents, not only the UN, but also maybe some of the I don't know the reporters and so on. This is also a conflict where militancy is very present. People everybody has an opinion about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. So it's and sometimes it's difficult for a journalist. It's difficult for the humanitarians. It's difficult for the politicians. It's difficult for everybody to keep a little bit aside and trying to be impartial and neutral on in these kind of things. That is not. It's not easy. Nevertheless, Israel is not yet providing, I suppose, the evidences that the journalist and all the team was linked to Hamas, but let's see in the future. Nevertheless, this is a bad example how international press it's not possible to have international press that should be more independent, of course, because local press it's difficult. People have to live there all the year, have families and so on. It's difficult to be impartial, as we know, because it's the real world working. So it's very much important the presence of the international press. Israel hasn't allowed that to happen. Netanyahu I read in the newspapers in Israel that gives some instructions to open more the presence of international media in the next days ahead. Let's see if that happens. Nevertheless, targeting journalists is not a good way of doing business, of course, but journalists have to keep more impartial in providing facts, for sure, but trying not to mix too much with the local authorities. Otherwise, they could be a target, of course. But nevertheless, it's
yes.
Gaza conflict has a lot of bad examples in several things. Humanitarian way of the populations have been blockaded inside the war zones without leaving. Impossibility of the international media being present is something that happened in all the conflicts. International media is always present with more or less security from the forces, of course, but it's up to them. It's up to international press, and so it's very difficult for us that are outside to realize if something that we see in the news or in the social media is true or not true. We know that today, with the artificial intelligence and all the tools that we have in the digital world, everything is possible. And
Lieutenant General Marcus Serrania,
know that better than anybody.
Thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Yes.
We appreciate your time and perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
European Union foreign ministers will meet on Monday to discuss the upcoming talks between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, which will happen on Friday in Alaska. The EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas said the US can pressure Russia to negotiate seriously about ending the war in Ukraine and that any deal must include Kiev and the EU. She stressed that international law recognizes all occupied lands as Ukrainian and the deal must prevent further Russian aggression. The ministers will also discuss Gaza. Ukraine and Russia traded fresh strikes overnight, with Kiev targeting a key defense plant in Russia's Nizhny Novgorod region and Moscow hitting Zaporizhia's bus station and a university clinic, injuring at least 20. The attacks come amid tense diplomacy ahead of the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, as Zelensky renews calls for tougher sanctions and NATO vows continued military aid. Our Fikra Dolokhanov reports from Kharkiv, Ukraine.
Ukrainian drones have struck the Arzamas instrument building plant in Russia's Nizhny Novgorod region, a facility producing equipment for the aviation and space industries. Regional authorities confirmed the target was the city's industrial zones. In Zaporizhia, Russian forces launched 2 guided aerial bombs, one hitting the central bus station, the other a clinic at the Zaporizhia Medical University. Local officials say at least 20 people were injured. The strikes come as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky held a phone call with Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev. They condemned Russian strikes on an oil depot run by Azerbaijan state energy company SOKAR in Odessa, as well as strikes on other Azerbaijani energy facilities in Ukraine. Baku has warned it may lift its arms export embargo to Kiev if such attacks continue. Meanwhile, the White House says any events involving Zelensky during the upcoming Trump-Putin talks in Alaska would likely happen after the two leaders meet. US Vice President J.D. Vance stressed Washington seeks a peace deal based on current front lines and will no longer directly fund Ukraine's war effort, though Europe is free to purchase US-made weapons. Zelensky insists there is no sign of genuine Russian steps towards peace, calling for more sanctions and pressure. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says arms supplies to Ukraine will continue regardless of Alaska talks, with new commitments already made by the Netherlands and Nordic states. Fikra Dolokhanov, Elbrus Musayev, Kharkov, Ukraine.
In an exclusive interview to Anewz, Kharkiv Mayor Ihor Terekov reflects on the city's resilience, the urgent work to rebuild after destruction, and the role of his regular video addresses in uniting citizens, supporting recovery, and honoring the unbreakable spirit of Ukraine's defenders and residents.
Mr. Terekov, you're recording video addresses to the citizens of Kharkiv after air attacks. How do they help people of Kharkiv? What's the effect of that?
Насправді дуже важливо, щоб люди були проінформовані.
These destructions that occurred, we work to clear them away quickly, put things in order and eliminate the damage. This is very important for us. People need help. This help is provided by the city authorities, our volunteers and international organizations. I am very grateful today to everyone who joins us in this very important but difficult work.
Mr. Terekov, imagine you are recording a victory message to the citizens of Kharkiv. What would be your first words?
First of all, of course, I want to thank our military. I will thank our people, the unbreakable people who stopped this aggression and who, in fact, with their lives and their will, have achieved victory.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terekov.
In coming days, Anewz will share a full version of the interview on social media and all other platforms. In March 2022, the Kiev suburb of Bucha became a symbol of Russian occupation. Survivors share their powerful testimonies from mass killings and captivity to moments of courage, kindness and resilience. Through their own words, hear how residents risk their lives to protect neighbors, document atrocities and hold on to humanity in the face of brutality. Witness the reality behind the headlines, the stories the world must not forget.
Мой муж каждый день выходил в 8 утра и приходил 4 дня.
My husband used to leave every day at 8 in the morning and return at 4 in the afternoon, like going to work. By 4 o'clock, I would already be looking out the window to see where he was. By 5, I knew he wasn't coming. I can't even speak about it properly.
Что-то я не могу нормально говорить.
In March 2022, the Kiev suburb of Bucha became a symbol of Russian occupation, a place where hundreds of civilians were killed and others endured weeks of terror. Survivors are still piecing together what happened and why.
We're
standing now in what's more of a small square or park with trees planted in rows. Each tree bears a tag with the name of someone killed in Bucha during the occupation. On Yablunska Street and the nearby area, around 120 people were killed, either from gunshot wounds or from being denied medical assistance.
The killings did not distinguish between soldiers and civilians. Witnesses say Russian troops opened fire on men, women, the elderly, and even those who supported Moscow.
Apart from killing civilians and patriots, they also killed people who supported the so-called Russian world. Among the dead are people who welcomed their arrival, and yet they killed them anyway.
Amid the danger, residents risked their lives to help others, teaching neighbors how to avoid soldiers, hide in basements, and survive.
Our role during the occupation was to study people's psychology and teach civilians how to behave to survive. We found certain keys, certain strategies during the occupation, and we believe those helped save lives.
The psychological effect of the occupation was so heavy, some people still carry the trauma of those days.
We, the residents, including myself, stayed in the basement. There were so many soldiers that life became unbearable. Over time, my health worsened. I developed a severe stammer. I'm getting treatment now, thanks to those who are helping me.
Some encounters with Russian forces were moments of life or death.
Those men from Bucha, under the barrels of assault rifles, turned around and said, "Don't touch the doctor, let him go." If they hadn't done that, I'd have been taken prisoner too. Only God knows if I'd have survived.
Others remember the surreal mix of war and fleeting humanity.
On 8th March, International Women's Day, even with the war and shelling, I took a crate of flowers to give to women. That's Ukraine for you. The enemy gave us mines. We gave our women flowers.
The physical and emotional scars run deep. Survivors say they cannot forget, but they carry their memories as proof of what happened in Bucha.
Forgetting? No, that's impossible. This story lives with us. The fact we are all standing here alive is nothing short of a miracle.
Ukrainian investigators have identified more than 580 victims so far, with dozens still buried as unknowns and many more missing. For Bucha's survivors, telling their story is part of seeking justice.
This summer, Europe has been battling a wave of wildfires during heat waves, with blazes driving people from their homes, threatening heritage sites and charring landscapes from the Mediterranean to the UK. This weekend, they continued to wreak havoc across Spain, Italy and Scotland.
Wildfires across Europe intensified on Sunday, forcing mass evacuations of people from their homes in Spain, scorching protected forest in southern Italy and across one of Scotland's most famous landmarks. In Spain's Castile and Leon region, about 1,400 people were evacuated from their homes as flames driven by sudden wind shifts tore through Leon province. The fire reached the town of Caricedo and the UNESCO-listed Las Medulas archaeological site, triggering emergency alerts. Some residents expressed anger over what they saw as inadequate aerial support.
This would have been controlled already if they hadn't taken out the aerial means at 11 a.m. when they left. We understand there are more fires, but they could have left at least one or two refreshing the area, but they took them all, and that's it. Look, it's now already getting into the houses. Look.
Traffic jams formed as residents fled, while emergency crews worked to contain the fast-moving blazes. Another fire in Zamora province prompted evacuations of people from 3 towns, while in Navarra's Carcastillo, helicopters tackled a pine forest fire. In Italy, crews battled for a third day to contain a wildfire in Terzigno's Vesuvius National Park that has destroyed hundreds of hectares of woodland. Steep terrain and strong winds have hampered efforts to contain the flames, which threatens one of Italy's most visited natural attractions. Meanwhile, in Scotland, a wildfire swept across Arthur's Seat near Edinburgh, sending smoke billowing for miles. Police urged the public to avoid the popular tourist spot as crews work to bring the blaze under control.
Southern Japan's Kyushu Island is battling relentless downpours that have triggered severe flooding and mudslides. Tens of thousands have been evacuated in Kagoshima and Kumamoto. Kumamoto alone saw more than 40 centimeters of rain in just 24 hours, prompting a top-level alert. Rescue teams are actively searching. One member of a mudslide-hit family remains missing, and others have vanished in swollen rivers. Travel is crippled with bullet trains halted and power outages affecting around 6,000 resident households. The joint declaration between Azerbaijan and Armenia signed in Washington on Friday has drawn praise from world leaders and international organizations.
The The joint peace declaration signed in Washington between Azerbaijan and Armenia has been met with broad international approval. NATO called the accord a significant step for regional security, while the United Nations described it as a milestone in normalising relations. The European Union called the deal a major breakthrough, with High Representative Kaja Kallas praising both sides and the US for progress. Pace. President Theodoros Rousopoulos voiced firm backing, stressing the Assembly's readiness to assist in consolidating the deal and building mutual trust. Across Europe, leaders congratulated Baku and Yerevan on the breakthrough. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy hailed the progress achieved in the talks, calling it an important move toward lasting peace. During Sunday address, Pope Leo expressed hope that the US brokered agreement would bring lasting stability to the South Caucasus. Messages of support also came from Spain, Italy and the Czech Republic. In the region, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan praised President Ilham Aliyev's leadership in advancing a peace agenda for the South Caucasus. Georgian Parliament Speaker Shalva Papuashvili called the agreement a historic step toward reconciliation and regional prosperity. Leaders from Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan also welcomed the deal.
With the signing of a historic peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia in Washington, Georgia has welcomed the deal as a milestone for regional stability. Tbilisi sees this as an opportunity for deeper cooperation and economic growth across the South Caucasus. Let's learn more about Tbilisi's perspective from Ambassador Valery Chechelashvili, Georgian Strategic Analysis Center board member who joins us from Tbilisi, Georgia. Ambassador Chechelashvili, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me in your ear.
Ambassador Chechelashvili, from Georgia's perspective, what makes this peace deal as a historic moment for the South Caucasus?
Well, absolutely. I think that's a new stage in development of the South Caucasus. But I have to emphasize that without the patience and commitment contributed to this process by both two leaders, President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan, it wouldn't have been possible. Plus, of course, American diplomacy, who worked very intensively, as I understand, with both Baku and Yerevan, made this historic deal possible. And now it opens absolutely new perspectives for the whole South Caucasus region, because more United States in the region means more peace, more investments, more development and more prosperity, and less Russia means less problems, less contradictions. So I think that we have very good perspectives ahead. But I think that we are witnessing also new platform of cooperation established in the South Caucasus. It's 2+1, but to become it more sustainable and stronger, I think that 3+1 will be much more interesting, and these three should include also Georgia. I think it's in interest of Azerbaijan, Armenia, the United States, and Georgia itself.
In your opinion, how can Georgia position itself as a bridge for economic and infrastructure projects emerging from this new era of cooperation?
We're already engaged in the implementation of a number of infrastructure projects in the cooperation triangle Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan. But this deal, declaration signed by President Aliyev, Prime Minister Pashinyan, and President Trump, they are opening absolutely new perspectives, because with the peace in the South Caucasus, attractiveness of the whole our region of the South Caucasus will become much more higher, and it will attract more investments, more trade, and more interest for as a transit route. And of course, Trump's route for international peace and prosperity will contribute to this process.
Ambassador Valery Chechelashvili, thank you very much for talking to Anewz. We truly appreciate your time. Thank you very much. A magnitude 6.1 earthquake struck the Sindergi district in Balıkesir province on Sunday evening. It caused the collapse of 16 buildings, including 2 mosque minarets, and left 29 people injured. Tragically, an 81-year-old woman died after being rescued alive from the rubble by emergency teams. The quake's depth was recorded at around 10 to 11 kilometers, according to Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority and Germany's Research Center for Geosciences. It was felt across several provinces, including Istanbul. Jordan will host a meeting on Tuesday with U.S. and Syrian officials to discuss support for Syria's reconstruction. The meeting will be attended by Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shibani and U.S. Special Envoy to Syria, Thomas Barrack. This initiative aims to help stabilize the region following more than a decade of conflict in Syria. On Wednesday, Damascus signed 12 investment agreements worth $14 billion. Among them are $4 billion deal with Qatar's UCC Holding to build a new airport and the $2 billion agreement with the United Arab Emirates National Investment Corporation to establish a metro system in the Syrian capital. Dozens of Afghan refugees, including women, children and the elderly, have gathered at Pakistan's Chaman border, preparing to cross into Afghanistan on Sunday. The movement comes amid a government crackdown on documented Afghan refugees, with a September deadline looming for their departure.
Families carrying their belongings waited outside a registration office at the Chaman border in Pakistan's Balochistan province. Some said they were returning home willingly, even describing themselves as happy to go back.
We have been here for 15 to 20 years, running a small shop. But now that the situation here has worsened, and there it has improved, we should return to our country.
Pakistan has ordered all documented Afghan refugees to leave by September 1st, though deportations have already begun, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. More than 2.1 million Afghans have left this year alone, straining Afghanistan's fragile economy. Rights groups have criticised the policy, warning it leaves many refugees in legal limbo. Authorities in Islamabad say only Afghans with valid visas will be allowed to remain. The repatriation drive, part of Pakistan's illegal foreigners repatriation plan launched in late 2023, comes as Afghanistan faces a new wave of mass deportations from Iran, prompting aid agencies to warn of further instability.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News for more.